I'm good to go? All right. All right. So I want to say thanks for showing up. This is about how many people I thought would be here this afternoon. I'm just saying. So I've got to clarify the title. This title has been a big topic in my household. So I call it JEA Power. You got to, raise your arm. My wife started asking me, well, what's JEA Power? What are you talking about? And I told her, well, it's PowerShell JEA. She goes, oh, no. You got to change the title. I said, too late. It's already in print. So I had this really great image for my icebreaker slide, right? Because you got to raise your arm and you got the power. But a couple of guys in my office had a different image in mind. This is kind of what they thought of as soon as I said JEA. All right. So I kind of went with that. But trust me, you'll see my other slide later. All right, so a little bit about me. I didn't do the little cool, at who am I or anything like that. A little old school. So I've been in the military for about 23 years, thereabouts. Anything after 20, you just quit remembering it. With the last 19 years of it being in a Windows environment, I've gone from, classroom support, help desk, to server admin and all that stuff. I've also recently started my track on becoming a SANS certified instructor. I am a community/mentor for the SEC 504 and 505, the Windows and the incident handling. I'm self-taught PowerShell, so everything I know, I've read online, I've watched the videos and all that stuff, until I took the SEC 505 class, but then there wasn't much in there I learned because of all the other self-teachings I've done. So if you want to follow me, I got my Twitters and all that good stuff up there. But I got to mention my passion for PowerShell. I mean, I've got this passion. I don't know what it is. Just as soon as I learned it, I was like, this thing is awesome. And so I just started learning everything I could about it. So we're walking around the office and we're talking about different problems and how to solve things. And of course, my passion of PowerShell, every other word out of my mouth is, oh, we can script this, we can PowerShell that and everything. And I just see this look in my coworkers' eyes, right? That's what it looks like. Say it one more time. Say it one more time. So the passion runs deeper than just at work. I've got a 16-year-old at home, right? And we were driving home one day, and he decides he's going to tell me, oh, I don't use PowerShell. I use VB script and batch scripting. He about made me wreck my truck, right? So I disowned him and all that stuff. But just so you guys know, last night he told me he started doing more stuff in PowerShell, so I said he'll be more than welcome to be back in the family. All right, so what is this PowerShell JEA thing? Well, Microsoft says just enough administration. Well, it is a security technology that enables delegated administration for anything that can be managed with PowerShell. That's a whole lot. So what it boils down to is you can take a commandlet and you can allow somebody to run that commandlet, whether it's an admin commandlet or just a user commandlet. And it only takes a user to run it. So you can narrow down exactly what somebody can do with PowerShell. So if you guys know Jeffrey Snover, I kind of liked his analogy. He said it's like a key ring, right? So let's say you're going out of town for a while and you've got a neighbor who needs to check on the cats or dogs or something for your house. So instead of giving your neighbor the whole key ring with, your office key on there, your house key, your truck key and all that good stuff, you just give them your house key and say, hey, feed my animals while you're gone, or while I'm gone. But you're not taking my truck key because you're not moving other people with my truck, right? And then you think, well, you need more than just my house key. You need to check my mail too. So here's my mailbox key. But you're not getting my office key or my safe key. So that's kind of like what PowerShell JEA is. Instead of giving somebody a block of admin rights, you're just divvying out a little bit of rights here and there. What I say is it's a really cool way to empower your users to do your job for you. And I've got plenty of examples about that. Again, it's a way for your users to run administrative tasks without giving them that power user rights or full admin rights on the machine. A big takeaway from this is if you do enable this, this is not a project. This is not going to be set it and forget it. And a prime example is if you give one user elevated permissions to do this one thing, guess what? His partner wants to be able to do that too, and next thing you know, you're handing this thing out like candy. So if you're going to run this, these are your requirements. And I would just like to point out the fact that there is no PowerShell core on here, so therefore it will not run on Linux. That's pointed to somebody in this audience right here, just saying. So it does require PowerShell remoting. The big takeaway from this one is on Windows servers, it's enabled by default. If you're going to enable JEA on your workstations, you need to make sure you enable PowerShell remoting because it is turned off by default. So how does all this work? Well, so the short answer is a user is going to use enter PS session, right? But instead of just a normal enter PS session, he's going to specify an endpoint to connect to. And when he does that, there's a file that's going to create this virtual admin account on the machine. And so basically he's going to be running these commands. It's like in a run as type mode. And that virtual account, that virtual admin is only there for that one session. As soon as the user logs out, the admin account is deleted. So this is great. So if somebody is in your system and they're running Mimikatz and they happen to catch the credentials of that virtual admin account, it's only going to be good for that one session, 15, 20 minutes, however long that guy is on that one system. And it is a local admin account, so those credentials will not work on another machine in the environment. And there's a role capability file that will tell this virtual admin account, hey, the user that is running this, he's only allowed to see these particular commands. And it's going to be, you can narrow it down as tight as you want. All right. Now, so yeah, the user's going to do what he needs to do, and then he's going to exit out, and then, like I said, the virtual account is deleted. So here's this role capability files. This is kind of like the heart. This is the hardest thing to configure, I would say. At least it was for me when building the demo. So this is the file that controls what the user is able to see. That virtual account will be able to see everything, so every one of the commandlets that's available. However, the user on the other side of that virtual account is only going to see what is specified in this role's capabilities, whether it's the module, the external commands like the who am I, the SC, things like that. Any special scripts that you've created, your PS1 files, you'll have to specify them in here, otherwise the user will not be able to run them. So this here's where I would like my laser pointer to work, because there's a lot going on here. So this here, oh, you can't see it. Son of a gun. So right there, if you can see where it says new PS role capability file, that is the actual commandlet that will create your role capability file. So once that role capability file is made, you can actually open it up with any text editor and then fill in the rest of what you see on the slide here. So your visible commandlets, that's going to be what the user can see on the other end. And then you have your visible external commands. Those are those commands, as you can see in here, it's using who am I. Those are your other commands that are not PowerShell. That if you wanted that user to run, you're going to have to specify them there, along with all your PS1 scripts that you create. So how's all this tied together? So we've got the role capability file. Now we have to associate it with that user, or users, or that group. This here's where the sessions config file comes in at. And this is going to control who can log into that machine and who cannot. And then it'll also link that role capability file to that user as well. Again, talks about the users. The keynote here is I said it was a local admin account on the machine, except if you enable this on the domain controller. If you enable this on the domain controller, he is now a domain admin. But you still have the same restrictions, so you could use this for like your DNS admins or anything like that, your ADUC admins. So they'll have, their virtual account will be in domain admin, but you only give them the commandlets for DNS or Active Directory, and that's all they'll be able to do. So I keep talking about this virtual account that gets built on the fly. You can specify your own accounts, or you can use group service manage accounts if you need network access. However, the downfall to that is it'll be harder to link who ran what command, or what commands were run and who ran them, because it's only going to be linked to that service account that everyone is using. So that first bullet is the commandlet that you need to create the file. So once the file, again, is created, you can go into the file and then specify all the other things in here. So like your transcript directory, like where do you want your transcripts to go so you can audit who's doing what on your machine. And then you have your role definitions. This is the part that is linking your groups, as you can see here, the DNS admin group, to which role capability file it's going to use whenever they remote in. And we're going to take a look at these because I actually, in the demo, did a little different. Instead of actually opening it back up, we did it all in one commandlet. So you'll see what that looks like as well. So this is just kind of a review of how all this is going to work together. So you have your users. They're going to, and then you've got your session file sitting on the machine. They're going to enter PS session. And now, like I said, they're going to have to specify which endpoint they're going to connect to. That's what the last part is, you know, the endpoint, and then whatever session config they're going to connect to. And then that session config is going to build that virtual account. That virtual account is going to look at the role capability file and say, okay, what are you authorized to run? And then it's going to come back and say, okay, well, he's authorized to run these commandlets or these commands or these scripts. And then that's just what the user is going to see. So now we get to do the fun stuff. All right, so I'm going to pull this down right quick. So as you can see, I've only got 3 virtual machines running. I've got a domain controller because I need the Kerberos stuff. Then I have my JEA demo server. That's the one we're going to enable JEA on, and we're going to remote into. And then I've got my client server, which is where I'm going to do all my work. And there's many ways to tackle this, but the way I'm going to tackle this is I'm going to create all the files and everything I need locally on my client machine, and then I'm just going to push it to my one server. And this is just to symbolize that you can create everything locally, and then if you have a list of machines, you can just push it out to all the machines at once that you want to enable this on. All right? Because otherwise I could just sit on the demo server and type all this stuff and it'll work. But I wanted to demo something that's more realistic. So we're going to start off. I'm going to show you that I don't have a whole lot built here. I forgot this part takes a minute. But these are the users that we're going to be working with. I have my JEA contractor, I have my JEA developer, and then my JEA admin, who is a domain admin, and then my JEA user, who I'm logged in as. So just to show you who all is in the domain admin group, you're going to see just the JEA admins, my built-in administrators, and that's it. And then under my users, this is just to show that I'm not playing any tricks or anything like that. So everybody else is in the user group. My devs, my admins, my user, all that good stuff. So as an administrator, we're going to log in. Now I just kind of want to show you, as you can see, now that we're in the demo server, you can tell we're in the PS session because of the name out next to it. But I wanted to show you what all commands are available if you log in and you have full rights to it. As you can see, this is everything that's available to me. This is pre-JEA. I'm going to stop that. And I'm going to exit. And then I'm actually going to go back in. dev. And just to show you, I have access denied. Right now, I'm not authorized as the developer to log into this machine. Now, I can show you that the contractor's not either, but they're in the same groups, and we're just going to get the same results. So now, when we build this thing, we're building this thing, and we're actually building a module and a folder and everything that has to sit in the PowerShell modules folder. And that's what this command line is doing here. It's just building my modules folder locally on my client machine. And we're going to name the module BSidesCharm. And then in the next command, I'll talk about that in a second. So as soon as that's done, we've created our folder. And here's our demo files. Or nope, that's actually what I'm working out of. So here's my config files. These are what we're going to push to our demo server when we're done. So this roles capability file, this is an important file. This is where all your role capability files are going to go. And your folder has to be called roles capabilities. Otherwise, JEA will not see it. It will not work. I've tried. It gave me a headache trying to figure that out, or remembering about that. So we're going to go ahead and create that. So that's done. So here we go. So in the PowerPoint, I talked about I showed you the commandlet to create that role capability file, and this is it right here. And as you can see, we're just going to put it in our modules folder, in our role capability folder, and we're going to create a resource or a role capability file called developer. So this one here is going to be for our web developers. So we're going to create that. And then just to kind of show you what it looks like, we're going to open it up. We're not going to open it up. Role developer. We'll open it up a different way. So, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit harder to read here, but essentially there's nothing configured in here. So let's see. So I've got this is one of the things I do have pre-cooked, kind of like HGTV. I'm pulling the turkey out of the oven. So that one did open. So this is essentially what it looks like when you fill it out. Right, the company unknown, and all this is actually put in here by default, the copyrights, all that stuff. The only thing I had to build was this right here, the visible commandlets. So I'm going to give our developers a restart computer, and I'm narrowing down, or I'm also giving them restart service. But I'm not just going to let them restart any service. I'm narrowing that down to the spooler service and the bit service. I was going to get all fancy and everything and create a whole website and, give them the IIS service, but I just got lazy. This is much easier. So when we show this later, we're going to restart the spooler and the bit service, and you're going to see that it's successful, but we're going to try and restart some other services and see that it fails. And I think, yep, so I gave the developers an external command of who am I as well, because I wanted to show you guys what the virtual account looks like. So now we're going to also create a role capability file for our contractors. And that's done. Let's see if this one opens. Yeah, that one opens. So this is actually what a blank one looks like. As you can see, there's no modules or anything specified in there. Everything is commented out. So you'll have to go in there and fix it. Let's go ahead and I'll show you what the pre-cooked one I did was. So I'm only giving the contractors restart computer. Now there's a reason I came up with these particular ones is I had a contractor at my last job. He worked off post and he was in control of this one app that we had, but I controlled the server. He'd get bored at work and decide that he was going to come in the office, have me reboot his computer. As a former sysadmin, I had 15, 20 different things on my plate that had to get done that day. And I had to stop everything so I could reboot his server. So if I just gave him this one commandlet, he could have stayed at his own office and rebooted his own server. I'm not bitter or anything, I'm just saying. So earlier I talked about creating that session file that links your role capabilities to your user groups. And I said, you know, there's the one small commandlet you can create and then just open up the file and modify it. And I said, but in our demo, I'm just going to do it on one commandlet. And that's this one right here. So I'm going to put it in the same path, and this one is our session configuration because it ends with the SC. I'm going to give it a session type of a restricted remote server. So as soon as I enable this, anybody who can remote PowerShell into this machine is not going to be able to unless they use the endpoint that we specified, that BSidesCharm earlier that I showed you. And we are going to run it as a virtual account. We're going to keep that as true. We're not going to create any virtual accounts. So here's my role definitions. This is the meat of it right here. This is what is gluing your user groups to those role capability files. And I've got groups of developers and contractors, and I'm giving them the capabilities of the developers and contractors that we just created. So I'm going to highlight all that. And now that's done. Did I? Yeah, I did close it. Just kind of want to show you guys what we've built so far. So here's what's going to be the modules folder. This is the module we're building. Here's that restricted sessions file that restricted sessions file we created. Here's our role capabilities files that we've created. So if you had more, you'd have more capability files in here as well. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. And here we go. So here's our transcript directory. The virtual account is true like we wanted. And here is the role definitions. This is, again, the glue of what's gluing all this together. Close that one out. So here we go. So now that we've got everything created, I've got to move everything over where it needs to be. So all I did here is I just copied everything from my demos file, the one that I've had pre-cooked, and put them into the module that we just built, is all I did there. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it all over to that JEA demo server. Now let's just do it this way. Got my session. Now, when we're building this and moving it over, we will have to be an admin, and that's, you can't really see it, but I am logging in as the JEA admin here. So there's that session. Before I do that, I want to jump over here. And just to show you, so we're in the modules folder. I'll hit refresh just so you can see we don't have our JEA module over there just yet. Now we're going to hit go here. Now we're going to hit go. And it just all copied over. And slide that back up. And yeah, BSidesCharm. And so now it's all there. However, we're not done yet. We've created the files. We've got the files in place. Now we just have to register the sessions. And I'm going to do that a little bit differently. So get credential. So I'm going to see what PS session configurations are already on the machine first. So we're going to do that. Of course, you do have to be an admin to do this. Okay, so we're looking at these names, and I see some Microsoft stuff, and yeah, some Microsoft stuff. So let's head back up here, and let's go ahead and register that session. And what we're doing is I'm going to invoke the command, this bottom one here, the register PS session. We're registering the BSides demo, and then I have to give it a file path of where the session config file is. So that's what this command here is doing. So I'm going to run that. MIN. Now you guys see why I have all these commands pre-cooked. Okay, so we see a couple things here. We see this warning that says, hey, your PS session configuration has been enabled or whatnot. You may need to restart the RM service. And then I see this, I've seen this more times than not. And I have yet to dig into why I'm getting that error. Sometimes I'll get it, sometimes I won't. So what I end up doing here, and I've been pretty successful so far, is I will do what it tells me to, and I will restart the RM service when RM. Oh, no, okay. Let me just go back in and look at our sessions, make sure it's there. So now we see Microsoft stuff, Microsoft, oh, BSides demo. So it's there. So now we're down here. So we're going to take this first command, this enter PS session, we're going to test it with the JEA dev, the developer. So let's see what happens with him. And he failed. And I will tell you why he failed. Anybody know why he failed? Okay. So earlier in the PowerPoint, I said when you enable JEA, you're going to have to enter PS session, and then you're going to have to specify which endpoint or session configuration he's going to be using. We did not do that here, and that is why he failed. So if I use this command, the enter PS session, the demo server, and then as you can see, I'm specifying the configuration of BSides demo. Now he will be able to work. And he's in. And that's what it took. So now that we're here, let's get command. Let's see what he's able to get. All right, so he has restart computer, select object. Wait a minute, we didn't give him select object. We gave him restart computer. Well, in PowerShell JEA, there's a small select of commands that they're going to get by default, and that's here. Everybody gets these regardless, and that's why they're here. So he does have restart computer. Okay, well, let's see, what else do I have in here? Oh yeah, he has restart service as well. So let's try restart bits. Well, that seemed to work. So let's do restart service. Good teaching moment, because I keep forgetting. I'm in love with the tab key, but inside PowerShell JEA, you don't have tab completion. Yeah. So that stinks. So now I actually have to type this out. So name, we're going to try the DNS service. Should fail. And there you go. But here's a key. The argument DNS does not belong to the set of spool or bits. If you remember back in the config file when we built that, we had a validate set keyword in there. So that validate set is telling the session config, or that's giving the role capability file saying, hey, these are the only services that they can restart. So he cannot restart any other service. So I believe we gave him who am I as well. So let's look at that. So he is this virtual account. And as you can see by looking at this, how this virtual account is created and built, that the virtual account ties it back to the JEA developer. So earlier, whenever I mentioned about creating your own service accounts and managed service accounts and all that good stuff, and it'd be harder to trace back, this is what I was talking about. All right, so let's exit out. He's done. Let's see, who do we have next? We have our contractor. Oh, no, we have our user. That's right. I swapped it. There's a reason. So let's see what our user can do. He got access denied. He got access denied because he is not in that session configuration file. He was not authorized to remote into that machine whatsoever. So now let's look at our contractor. Can our contractor remote in? And he is in. Well, let's see. What commands can he do? All right, so he's got the restart computer, just like we told him he could have. Looks like he's got all those same defaults. Doesn't look like he's got anything else. So let's just go ahead and restart a service. Let's just see. Term restart service is not recognized. So this virtual account can see that restart service is there, but he's not going to allow that user to run it, period, whatsoever. All right, well, who am I? Well, it worked for the other guy. It's not recognized either. Well, he's not allowed to run that command. Okay, so this is why I want to do user first. So our demo server is up. Let's see, can he restart the computer? Failed to restart. Oh, it failed. This is a typical failure because you have to use the TAC force because somebody's already logged in. Okay, so if I remember correctly, yep, ran into that problem once before, or pretty commonly. So now it looks like it's restarting. Let's take a look. And stopping the services. So that is pretty much JEA in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it as far as, you know, getting in and looking at those config files and like constrained language mode. There's all kinds of other things you can do inside there. I just hit the very high points. So where do we go from here? Well, from here, just remember this is not a project. You're not going to set this and forget it. You're going to set this and it's going to be a routine thing that you're going to have to do. Anytime let's say your developer says, oh, you let me restart the IIS service. Well, I need to restart the www service as well. Well, now you have to go back in. You have to edit your config. You will have to unregister and re-register the JEA thing again as well. I really, really love this. I'm a big fan of empowering users to do minimal admin stuff that they do at home that they can't do at work. You know, so many times as an admin and help desk guy, I was like, well, I do this at home. Why can't I do it here? Well, now I can let them do it. They'll be happy, be less for me to do. And I'm a huge fan of things like that. So when you do empower your users, right, it gives them the power. It makes them feel like they have the power, right? So here's all the references that I had gone through to build this thing. I did learn some of it from my Sec 505 class. Again, I'll post these slides and my code and everything out somewhere at some point. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, I also use Twitter and LinkedIn to post whenever I'm doing any of those SANS classes. So when I tested this, when I went through this briefing the other day, I spent a whole 50 minutes with questions. For some reason, I'm running a little fast. So from at this point, I'm hoping you guys have lots of questions to fill my time. If not, go ahead and clap. Make me feel good. That's not happening. No, seriously, any, yes?
So, can you get it to operate on the basis of a blacklist as opposed to a whitelist? Or, I don't know why you never want to, but it's possible.
So the question is can you make this work as a blacklist and not a whitelist? I don't know. Trying to think of how that might even work, because you're already, because the way it's developed is to blacklist everything and only allow this or that. There may be something else inside Windows that you can restrict the use of certain commandlets. I haven't gone down that road. Sir.
Within your output, I saw when you were getting permissions, the things that your users were capable of doing had commandlet next to it versus the other things.
So the question is, or there was a point made that, some of my output said commandlet next to it versus not showing, I'm assuming, like the who am I command.
Well, if you go back to your I guess your user VM and the output when you were trying to figure out what permissions they had, the permissions that you did have or that user could use had commandlets right next to it.
Right, yeah. So whenever I run the get command, after I've done the remote PowerShell, it only listed the command lists that were available. I'm going to assume that's just a Microsoft thing, and it's not going to show you what actual commands. Well, you could probably almost look at it as like get command. What does that normally give you that that you would have outside of PowerShell JEA? Does it normally give you like, oh, he can run SC, he can run who am I? I'd have to dig into that to be sure, but I'm going to assume that because get command is looking for what commandlets you're going to run, like, if you're looking for a certain commandlet.
So within the JEA framework, it's specifically going to list the command.
I think so. Yes, sir.
In terms of being very restrictive, you have to use JEA if you fall into certain user categories. What was the extent of that? Like, for users not, you had the user and you had who was the developer, and then you also had .admin as one of the users?
Yes.
Would the admin user still be able to connect not using JEA?
Yes. So I'm glad you brought that up. I've got time. Let's test it, because I've read two different things. I've read that if you're in the local admins group, you're going to have access regardless. However, I read something somewhere else that said once you enable JEA, nobody has it unless it's configured in the resource file. So let's do this. And I actually thought of this earlier today. So let's just go back to the top. Here we go. So we still have JEA enabled. My server's back up. So we're going to do, I don't want to. There. You happy? Okay. So here we go. JEA demo, JEA.admin, So yeah, oh, wait, it's still trying. Yeah, so I guess I got in. Yep. Yeah, so if you're an admin on that machine, you're still going to be able to get in whether JEA is enabled or not. So this is how you're going to restrict your developers. I'm going to throw that out there because I chose developers because in my last unit, we got tired of dealing with our developers, so we just gave them admin rights on the machine. Does a developer really need full admin rights on a local web server? No. They do need access to some of those services that are on there, though, that they normally wouldn't have as a user. So that's why I kind of use them as the example as well. Any other questions? I can't tap dance for 20 minutes, so I guess that's it for us. I appreciate it.